Okay, hi again. This tutorial now takes us through setting up a quiz just from the question bank that we have just created. So I will click on quizzes and it will take me to the index page of the quizzes. I will go to the question bank. Remember, we have just created various questions within the source tool 2QB2. That was the question bank that we had. Now we'll go back to quizzes to now set up a quiz. So I will now add a quiz over here, and I could give it a name. For example, I could call it the midterm or the second week quiz. So an appropriate name, I'm just picking that. Then you can give the instructions for it. For example, attempt all questions. And you can even tell them it's a timed cut. If, for example, you want it to be a cut that has to be taken within a particular period. So you can say this is a timed cut, timed quiz of 20 minutes. 20 minutes, after which the system locks. Okay, just to make them aware. So we have different types of quizzes. For now, we will be looking at the graded quiz. So we have a practice quiz, which just allows them to practice. It won't grade them. We have a graded survey and a graded survey. So for now, I'll just select graded quiz. It will get into the category of assignments. You can shuffle answers, especially if it is the multiple answer questions or the multiple choice questions or even the true-false questions. Then, because it's a timed cut of 20 minutes, you can click on time limit and type in the number of minutes. Then when do you want to allow the students to see their responses? Yes, you want to allow them to see it, but maybe if, for example, our quiz was set for 15th, maybe you only want to show them their answers on around 22nd. So once you're done with that, also select show one question at a time. Now these are restrictions, like if you want only the students who have an access code to do the quiz and you have to share the access code, then filter IP addresses. If you know the IP addresses of the computers the students are going to use, especially if it's within a lab setting, you can be able to only allow those IP addresses for students to use to be able to sit for this particular quiz. You can assign it to everyone or to different groups, different sections. For now, I'll just select to everyone. And since we said it's a cut which is due on 15th, it's available, it's due on 15th, so you have time maybe from 13th to 15th to do that cut, which is 20 minutes. And there's an option at the top here which I have not talked about, the multiple attempts. The multiple attempts is if you want the student to be able to do the cut more than once. At this point, you can select which of the scores to keep, for example, the highest or the latest, or even an average of the attempts that you have provided. So maybe you can put it as 2 attempts, even just 1. So let me just put it at that, and I will now click on Save and Publish. But remember, we have just created the quiz instructions without really giving in the questions for the quiz. So fine, so these are all the instructions that I have put out, and what I'm going to do is I'll click on Edit so that I can now be able to add the questions. So on the Settings tab on the right side of it, there's a Questions tab which I can click on, and I could be able to add 1 question at a time if I had all the time to set up those questions, or just because we have created a question bank, we can be able to pull all the questions from it. So I'll select New Question Group, and I could pick, let's say, 4 questions out of that particular question bank. I may put it at 1 mark, or maybe 5 questions and give 2 marks for each of the questions. So that will be a total of 10 marks. Now I need to link to the question bank. So I'll click on link to the question bank, and a list of the question banks will be listed here. So since we called our source tool to QB2, you'll actually get to see it listed. You can click on it and select bank, and you'll notice it's actually displaying over here, but it's not yet linked it. So you need to select create group. So you can actually see that the question, 5 questions have been picked from this question bank. Each one of those will have 2 marks, and I can also notify the users the quiz has changed and click on save. It's always good that, yes, you might have published your quiz, but it's always good that you just preview the quiz. And as I mentioned, when you're pulling questions from a question bank, the questions given to student A will always be very different from student B. So this is a multiple blank question that we had. So you'll have 2 text fields which will allow them to type in the 2 answers. There's a next button, and I want you to notice that there's a timer that is already running because I had set it up for 20 minutes. This is a single answer question, so I will click on next. And this is where I can be able to upload a file. Remember the file upload question, where I could pick a topic, but at this point I will be able to now pick a file from my computer and then upload it and click on next. I'm on question 4, and this is a matching question. Notice you'll have the question on the left side, and the student has to choose one out of the drop down as the correct one. And once they've done that, they can click on the next, which is the 5th and the last question, and this gives the multiple drop down. Notice I will select roses are red, and so notice the drop downs now are many. There's red, blue, and yellow, so it's me to choose. So I'll say red and blue. And once I'm done with my quiz, notice I can always click on the back button. The student will be allowed to click on the previous button to be able to go back to their questions to see whether they have answered the questions satisfactorily. And at the end of it all, there's always this submit quiz button, which I can click on submit. So I'm not going to do that for now. Remember, I was just trying to preview this quiz. So that is one way that you can be able to set up your quiz. So I'll just click on quizzes here so that I could actually get to see my second week quiz. It's already set up here, and I could also decide I want to add some more questions. For example, I wanted a specific question to be in that particular card, maybe in addition to the randomly selected. Now sometimes it could be repeated, so you have to be careful about that. So I could click on preview, and maybe not preview. I'll click on edit. Click on edit here. So if, for example, you want all the 10 questions or 11 questions or whatever questions that you have, or specific questions set out for your CAT, for your quiz, you click on questions here. I'll delete this so that I don't have some questions being repeated. But now, instead of having you pulling from a question bank, you can actually specifically choose some questions from a question bank. So I'll click on find questions, and it will, on the left panel, display for me all the question banks that are available. For me it was source 2 to QB2, and notice it loads all the questions on the right side from question 1 all the way to question 9. So I can say I really wanted the student to do question 2. I wanted them to do question 8 and 9, maybe also question 6. So I wanted them to do that and click on add questions. And you'll notice that the points are also automatically picked as you set them. So this will be a quiz of 9 marks. And I can also decide I want to show the question details just for purposes of confirming whether whatever I typed was correct. And once I'm done with that, I can click on save. So again, it's always good, wise, that you click on preview just to see how the quiz looks like. And again, because it's a timed quiz, you'll get to see all of these questions that you have set out, or the ones that you selected. So I'll click on next. On the other hand, you can decide you want to choose all the questions in that question bank, and yes, they'll be picked, all of them, randomly also for the students' viewing. And that's the easiest way of creating question banks and setting out a quiz for that particular class of yours. Thank you.